Is there anything more heartbreaking than holding on to an $800 million empire and realizing it all came at the cost of your health, your childhood, and the love of your life? This is the story of Céline Dion, the woman whose voice could stop the world, who gave us the power of love, who made every soul ache with "My Heart Will Go On." But behind every standing ovation was silence. Behind every glittering gown, a body trembling with illness. Behind the thunder of applause, a woman singing through grief so heavy it could have crushed anyone else. Her legacy is staggering. Over 250 million records sold. Las Vegas residencies that rewrote entertainment history. A fortune touching $800 million, carved from music, perfume lines, fashion, and homes that look like they belong in fairy tales. A 72 million Bahamian-inspired estate. A French chateau on its own island. A serene Nevada mansion where her children's laughter once echoed through gold-lit halls. Her garage, a Maybach, a Mercedes, a Cadillac Escalade, silent witnesses to both triumph and heartbreak. Even her private jet, a $42 million Bombardier Global Express, wasn't just luxury. It was an escape from grief, a way to keep moving when standing still meant collapsing. But let's be clear, this story isn't about wealth. It's about the price that wealth demanded. Every dollar was built on sacrifice, singing after the death of her soulmate, touring when her body screamed for rest, pushing her voice to its very edge while her heart carried scars no one else could see. And when her family looks at that fortune today, they don't see assets. They see the woman behind it. A mother who gave them everything. A wife who loved beyond reason. An artist who bled her soul into every single note. If her music has ever carried you through heartbreak, consider leaving a tribute in the comments. Even a single like is a whisper of gratitude for the voice that carried us when we couldn't carry ourselves. But how does a girl born into poverty, sleeping in a dresser drawer because there wasn't enough money for a crib, end up moving the entire world with her voice? Céline Marie Claudette Dion was born in 1968, the youngest of 14 children in a tiny Quebec town. Her family had music, yes, but little else. Not enough food, not enough warmth, not even enough space to dream. Her lullabies weren't sung to her. They were overheard, drifting in from her siblings rehearsing late into the night. From the very beginning, her life was about endurance. By 5 years old, she was singing at her brother's wedding. Not as a cute sideshow, but because her voice was already too big to ignore. At 12, she wrote songs with her mother, recorded demos with her brother, and they sent one single tape to a Montreal producer named René Angelil. When René heard her voice, he wept. He said it was the voice of an angel. Then he did the unthinkable. He mortgaged his house to finance her first album. That wasn't business. That was belief. But belief wasn't enough. Céline had to sacrifice everything. While other girls were playing with dolls or sneaking out to dances, she was in cold studios, singing until her voice burned. She learned English phonetically, mimicking every sound like her life depended on it. Because it did. She gave up school events, sleep, even her childhood. Her first song became a hit in Quebec. By 14, she was on stage in Tokyo, singing in front of 115 million people. But what the cameras didn't show was the birthdays missed, the innocence lost, the relentless grind that stole her teenage years. In her memoir, she once wrote, "I never had a teenage life. I don't remember prom. I remember microphones and costumes and waking up at 5 a.m. for sound check. The spotlight looked golden, but it burned, and yet she kept walking toward it. Because she wasn't just chasing her dream, she was carrying her entire family's survival on her shoulders. Every note was a lifeline. But sometimes, destiny writes in secret. Sometimes, life plants a quiet miracle that changes everything. She first met René when she was just 12. He was 38, experienced, respected in the music world, and the first person to see her not as a child with potential, but as a soul already carrying greatness. That bond began as protection. He shielded her from the weight of fame, spoke when she couldn't, carried her when she was too tired to move. Slowly, protection became tenderness. Tenderness became love. By 19, she was pouring her feelings into letters. By 20, they had fallen quietly, privately, in love. Not to deceive, but to protect something fragile the world would never understand. When the truth finally came out, she stood tall against judgment. Because this wasn't scandal, it was sanctuary. In 1994, she married René in a ceremony that felt less like an event and more like destiny itself. Their love was not loud, it was luminous, not built for tabloids, but for eternity. He was her manager, her protector, her anchor. Every time she sang about love, she wasn't performing. She was testifying. And when the world crowned her a star, she always knew why. Behind her voice was his hand. Behind her courage was his faith. Tell me, how does that not break your heart? But here's the twist. While the world was falling in love with her voice, Céline was still fighting battles no one else could see. She was mocked for her accent, doubted by executives, told she didn't belong in American pop. She wasn't supposed to succeed, but she forced the world to listen. And when "Where Does My Heart Beat Now" cracked the US top 5, it wasn't because the world was ready for her. It was because she refused to be ignored. And that was just the beginning. So here's my question for you. Do you think Céline's success came from talent alone? Or was it her resilience, her sacrifices, her love story that made her unstoppable? In 1992, a single duet changed everything. A Disney cartoon suddenly wasn't just a children's film anymore. It became an emotional earthquake. Beauty and the Beast wasn't just sung, it was lived. Kids cried, parents held their breath, lovers clung to each other. That's what Céline wanted all along. Not fame, feeling. Then came 1997. The world sank with the Titanic, but it was her voice that kept it afloat. My Heart Will Go On wasn't just a song. It was survival. It was grief. It was love that refused to die, even after breath was gone. 30 million copies sold, awards stacked higher than most artists dream of. But behind that trembling vibrato was a woman breaking in silence. The world saw ovations, but not the migraines. The covers of glossy magazines showed gowns and glitter, not the collapses backstage. Nobody asked how lonely it was at the top. Nobody asked what it cost to give everything, every single night. And yet, she gave. In 2003, critics mocked her for taking a Las Vegas residency, calling it a career graveyard. But Céline didn't bury her career there. She built a cathedral. More than 700 shows. Over $600 million in ticket sales. But the real treasure wasn't money. It was people. 3 million souls walked into that theater and walked out stitched together. Her concerts weren't just performances. They were therapy, confession, sanctuary. She bled for her audience. And still, while fans screamed her name, rumors whispered in the shadows. Whispers of illness, silent battles hidden behind sequins and practiced smiles. Even as awards poured in, something inside her was quietly fading. She never stepped away. She walked through fire in heels, stood before presidents, sang for the Olympics, met royalty. But her proudest moments? Singing her sons to sleep when no one was watching. Her empire grew: perfumes, fashion, global tours, $500 million in net worth. But her true riches were measured in goosebumps, in tears, in letters from strangers who survived heartbreak because her songs told them they weren't alone. That's why she never needed to reinvent herself. She was already singular. And yet, while arenas thundered beneath her voice, her mind often wandered home. Back to a kitchen in Charlemagne, to a little girl singing into a spoon, pretending it was a microphone. The spotlight crowned her a queen, but it was discipline, humility, and a relentless purpose that kept her there. But every note she sang had a cost the audience never saw. And when fate finally came to collect, it didn't attack her career. It went for her heart. It struck the one soul who had been her anchor from the very beginning, René Angelil. He wasn't just her husband. He was the rhythm behind her silence, the fire behind her voice. He saw her when she was just 12, a girl with dreams too big for her body. He mortgaged his life, his security, his future, just to bet on her. What they built together wasn't just a career, it was holy. But even love that pure isn't safe from fate's cruelty. In 2013, cancer came for him. The same disease that once threatened her career now threatened the man who gave her one. Céline didn't hesitate. She walked away from tours, from stages, from millions of fans, to be by his side in the quiet hell of hospital corridors. Her voice, once echoing in stadiums, now cracked in whispered lullabies to a fading love. And then came January 14th, 2016. The day silence won. René's breath was gone. With it, half of Céline's soul unraveled. She walked alone into the basilica where they once promised forever. This time, forever had ended. But fate wasn't done. 48 hours later, another blow. Her brother, Daniel. Cancer again. Gone before the flowers on René's grave had even wilted. 2 funerals in 2 days. The man who built her future, and the brother who was part of her past. How do you survive that? How do you carry 2 coffins in one heart without breaking? Céline never begged for pity. She stood tall, but those closest to her whispered of nights when she sat in silence, clutching photographs until her hands shook. Grief made her thinner, quieter, but it did not erase her. Because some women aren't broken by loss, they are reforged by it. But this wasn't her first brush with unbearable sorrow. Long before headlines, long before cameras captured her grief, she had already lived through another heartbreak. Her niece Karine, just 16, fighting cystic fibrosis. Céline wasn't there as a star, but as an aunt, holding her hand through hospital nights, whispering lullabies over the sound of machines. When Karine passed, there were no headlines, just silence. Céline poured her pain into a song, Vol, not for charts, but for goodbye. A prayer disguised as melody. And even now, decades later, you can still hear Karine in her voice, a softness between notes, a sigh between syllables, because not all grief is loud. Some of it lingers quietly, forever. Some of love lives in lullabies, in unlit candles, in silences too sacred to name. For Céline Dion, V became more than a song. It became a promise etched in melody, a reminder that true love doesn't end when the body does. It simply takes flight and learns to soar. Motherhood, for Céline, never arrived quietly. It was a battle fought in shadows, a dream carved through blood, longing, and sleepless nights, where even the stars offered no comfort. Beneath the shimmering gowns and the anthems that shook arenas across the world, was a woman whispering prayers into the dark, begging for one miracle: to carry life, to hold a child whose heartbeat mirrored her own. After marrying René Angelil, the man who risked everything to give her a voice, Céline yearned to create a family. But nature was unyielding. While the world celebrated her voice, it never saw the bruises on her belly from injections, never heard the click of syringes at dawn, never felt the pain behind the forced smiles on red carpets. Years of IVF, surgeries, and hormone treatments endured in the silence of a soldier at war, finally brought the miracle she had prayed for. René Charles, whose heartbeat she first heard in 2000 and who arrived in January 2001. That birth was more than a beginning. It was the culmination of every unseen tear, every night curled around emptiness, imagining a future held in her arms. Yet dreams remained fragile. In 2009, while the world assumed she was recording, Céline suffered a miscarriage, privately shattered. No headlines, no statements, just grief, thick and choking behind tour curtains and hotel walls. She sang lullabies to millions while mourning the lullabies she never got to sing. Céline was never one to surrender. At 42, after another round of IVF, she gave birth to twins, Nelson and Eddie, in 2010. Two more miracles from a body already stretched beyond its limits. Joy came with scars, every smile hiding the fear that tragedy might one day steal from her the children she had fought so hard to meet. And then, as if fate itself envied her triumph, René was taken in 2016. Overnight, she became a widow, parenting 3 boys alone, trying to be both lullaby and anchor, compass and shelter, when all she wanted was to lean on the man who had once stood beside her. The voice that once echoed worldwide now sang in quiet rooms, to a smaller audience, where the love was immeasurable. No ovations, no curtain calls, just blankets, responsibility, and a strength few ever saw. Fame had arrived like wildfire, but motherhood was a battle she earned with every fiber of her being. Every time she looks into the eyes of René Charles, Nelson, and Eddie, she doesn't just see sons, she sees survival, the reason she never gave up, the echo of every loss, every needle, every note sung through pain. Beneath the brightest lights, singing with a voice so celestial arenas fell silent, Céline Dion wasn't merely a performer. She was a vessel of something sacred, a living hymn woven from heartbreak and grace. Every performance healed, confessed, remembered. But behind that unshakable voice, an invisible war had begun. By 2005, subtle changes appeared. Her vocal cords faltered, her breath tightened, and fear nested in her chest. Occasional discomfort escalated to violent stiffness. Her muscles locked, her lungs resisted. To outsiders, she blamed fatigue, colds, anything but the truth. On stage, she dazzled. Backstage, she collapsed. Desperation led to high doses of Valium just to function. "I could have died," she later admitted, not to headlines, but in quiet confession. Then, in 2022, the silence broke. Céline was diagnosed with stiff person syndrome, a rare neurological disorder that turns muscles to steel, restricting every movement once taken for granted. In her documentary, I Am Céline Dion, the world finally saw what she had hidden for years, not a diva in decline, but a warrior in private collapse. In one harrowing scene, her body writhes involuntarily on a therapy table, her face crumpling as she squeezes through the pain. No music, no audience, only the raw fight to survive. Even as her muscles betray her, her spirit refuses to. Trembling but determined, she returned to the studio. If it cracks, then it cracks. she said softly, "but if it works, it'll be the happiest day of my life." Those words are not merely words. They are the heartbeat of a woman who refuses to let illness erase her purpose. And yet, life continued its relentless testing. In January 2020, her mother, Céline Dion, her first home, her anchor, her beginning, passed quietly. Céline honored pain with poise, stepping onto a stage dressed in black, her heart splintered but her spine straight. Music became her language for grief, every trembling note a tribute to the woman who had believed in her first. Today, Céline no longer lives under stadium lights, but in a sanctuary in Las Vegas, Nevada. Her focus has shifted inward, her health, her family, and the fragile gift of time. Intensive therapy, careful nutrition, and rest structure her days. Though her frame has thinned, her eyes still blaze with the fire of a woman who refuses to surrender. Her sons, René Charles, Nelson, and Eddie, remain her anchor and her motivation, as she guides their growth with the same discipline she applied to her music. Though she no longer performs publicly, her voice still sings in quiet moments, humming lullabies to her children, practicing tones in her home studio, sustaining the connection to a voice that once defined the world. Her story has evolved from one of vocal triumph to human courage. Her silence roars louder than fame ever could, because her songs now exist not for applause, but for life itself. Céline Dion's journey is no longer just about music. It is about resilience, dignity, and the unyielding love of a mother who has bled through silence to protect her family. She has given more than voice. She has given herself. Her legacy is not measured by sold-out arenas or Grammy Awards, but by the grace she carries when no one is watching, the courage to sing, to mother, and to endure even when the world turns quietly without her on stage. And now we ask you, the listener, the witness of her life through melody. What does Céline Dion mean to you? Which song has wrapped around your soul in darkness, or lifted you higher in joy? Share your memory, because your story becomes part of the chorus that keeps her music alive, even when she can no longer sing it herself.